Yep, and here now to talk about it, let's bring in America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. Welcome back to Wake Up America, Dan.
Now, Dan, retailers are being told to source locally now, stretch their inventory as much as possible to get through the winter months. How long do you think small businesses will be able to survive when they can't find the sugar they need or the chicken they need to get through a regular consumer cycle?
Well, that's some advice, right? Do the best you can by sourcing locally. Look, this problem is far beyond that, particularly for small businesses. And where does it come from? Well, let's break it down. It obviously comes from COVID, but it's really the reaction that we have to COVID. So the answer is not to shut down. We have to figure out how to keep businesses moving. Now, larger retailers, larger businesses, they are taking control of their own supply chain and figuring out how to get product to be able to meet demand, because the demand is there. However, small businesses, what are they supposed to do? They're at the mercy of the supply chain, and they don't really have a lot of options, so they can really only do the best they can. At some point, we have to hope that the federal government wakes up, realizes the problem, and Build Back Better actually becomes part of Build Back businesses.
Dan, I mean, I'm sure many of us can expect for this to get worse before it gets better. This has been an ongoing issue for more than a year. How can retailers prepare for conditions if they are going to get even worse?
Well, the whole issue here is related to supply and demand. We have an enormous amount of demand and not enough supply. So these businesses really need to figure out, how can we get the supply? It's really an interesting thing, because anyone who owns a business always is concerned about sales, want to increase revenues, want to grow the business. Well, that right now is not the problem. The frustrating part is to say people want to buy our products, people want to buy our services, and we don't have the supply to be able to provide that. And a lot of that goes to the shortage in the labor force. You can't make stuff and you can't provide services. So what needs to happen here is we have to figure out how to get people back to work. Mandates and forcing people to leave their jobs or incentivizing people to stay home, that is not the path that we should be on.
Well, absolutely. I think to that point, if you're firing the people who want to show up, if you're paying the people who don't want to go to work to stay home, you create an environment where the things people need are very hard to come by. You know, markets, they crave consistency, they crave security. We have none of that right now. We've got consumers, they're facing shortages in everything from food to electronics, computer chips. How do we actually find the way out of this? Because at the end of the day, particularly if you look at what's happening with China and Taiwan, it's that potential instability in something like those computer chips being made there that drives the increase in prices, that drives this market insecurity that's causing pain for everyday Americans all across this country.
Well, Joe, there is always opportunities, even during gloomy times and difficult times. So I think what American businesses should be looking at here is to say our reliance upon foreign production may not be the way to go. Now, we all understand that in many cases, foreign production can be cheaper, particularly as it relates to labor. However, there is an opportunity right now for businesses to say, let's start making things here again, because things are not so cheap. So at some point in time, let's hope that really what comes out of this is businesses making microchips, for example, come back to the United States. One, it's good for our economy, and two, it gives us much more long-term security than we have right now when we are relying on foreign countries who are not our friends to have to get the products we need for everyday life.
Dan, the current mood is that this isn't going to go away anytime soon. And even if the port situation does improve, there may still be truckers, warehouse workers, and delivery vans, not enough people to do these jobs. I mean, COVID is causing more uncertainty every day. How badly will this affect our economy and our world standing?
Well, I don't know so much about world standing because I think many places around the globe are having similar problems. However, how are these things going to impact our economy? Well, they're going to continue to cause many, many problems. Now, what I really think can happen out of this, which to some extent may not be great news for American workers, is companies that are desperate to get laborers can't find them. So what do they need to do? They need to turn to AI, artificial intelligence, robots to figure out how to replace people to be able to keep production going, to be able to move product. And when we look at that, it's not necessarily to say, okay, we need to move some things within the warehouse or off of a ship from point A to point B. I'm even talking about the trucking industry. We see people like Elon Musk are experimenting to say, how could we start to create a trucking force that doesn't actually have drivers, where the trucks would drive themselves? And I think overall in the economy, it's not going to be today, it's not going to be tomorrow, but not too far in the distant future, we're going to have a situation where many jobs are going to be replaced by robots and AI, and that is really going to change how our economy operates.
Absolutely. Automation is coming one way or another, probably quicker when we set the conditions to actually force businesses to do more with less. One last question. I want to touch a little bit on the American auto industry. Many auto giants trying to figure things out as far as getting the parts they need. We've spoken a little bit about those superconductor chips in Taiwan. 90% of that market could be compromised by any type of Chinese incursion there. That impacts GPS, that impacts some toasters, certainly your automobiles. How do we make sure, again, to your point, that the American auto industry can compete? And I think in some ways it's back to your original point. We have to start becoming self-reliant again.
Well, we really do. And again, everything has really become reliant on an international supply chain. And right now, we're seeing the danger of that. Now, there was a lot of talk, obviously, during the Trump administration about America first, and people were offended by that. Okay, whatever. But here we are now, and if we really had an approach that was America first, meaning that we have to produce the things that we use, therefore that becomes an America first situation, we would be a heck of a lot better off. But until we're able to turn that corner and really produce what America needs and make it in America and make it at a competitive price, I'm afraid we're going to continue to repeat this mistake. And you know the old saying about those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Let's hope that we really learn some lessons here about our economy and how the world operates, so that the next time, unfortunately, if we have a situation like this, we'll be a heck of a lot more self-reliant than we are right now.
Well, Dan Geltrude, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.